welcome to another edition of SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Now here's your host, Dwayne and Allie.
Hello, Dwayne Brummett here with Allie Alberigo, SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Allie, great to be with you today. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm happy. And we didn't get to do a call last week because you were busy. I was busy. We took a break from a class, from our show, but we're back as always. What episode is this? 260 something or
257?
Wow, crazy. That's a lot of stuff. You and I talk a lot. We know how to talk.
I guess. I don't know. If it's over time. I don't feel like it's accumulative,
Yeah. That's awesome. And you're back at your house, I see. You've been
I got out of the
busy
bunker.
at the dojo. Yeah. Right? You've been at your dojo doing all the calls, doing all that, like working so much, more than ever. So it's cool to see you got a little bit of time to be at your house.
I am. I'm back in my home office, and it's nice because I've got a window that's right here. And so I got some natural sunlight. Obviously, when I was operating out of the studio, I didn't have that natural light. You know what I mean? And that was horrible. I mean, it didn't affect me too much, but it did a little bit. And it's nice. Getting some replay on you.
Yeah, sorry. I turned it on. I normally mute it, and I hit the mute, and then it started to play the audio, so I could see what we're producing on Facebook. Watch us live in delay.
And unbeknownst to you, this is the first time I'm also broadcasting live on our YouTube channel as well. So School Owner Talk YouTube channel. The Be Live system that we use now has the ability, and it has for maybe about a month or so, but has the ability to do simulcasting. So we're on YouTube and also Facebook Live.
That's fantastic. So that's good. So we don't have to now make more videos and do more time. It just goes right up live on the page. So, so it's a YouTube live video.
Yes.
That's very cool. Well, our sponsors are going to be happy. That's for sure, right? They're going to be happy. They're getting even more plugs. So it's interesting. Before we started chatting, you and I started talking about, what's going on in our lives. And we were talking about, the comeback, right? And, again, I don't know about you, but, there's still that little bit of underlying fear that, you always hear, the SUNY colleges are shutting down and SUNY Cortland, and they're, back to remote viewing, and some schools are shutting down and states are going into a shutdown mode. However, one good thing for me in my area, I went to my doctor for a checkup about a week or so ago, and they said they hadn't had a case of COVID in probably since June, they said, or July. So that's in that one particular office. So in our state, it's been much better. That's my good buddy, Solomon Brenner, very high-end, highly successful. Do you know Solomon? He's a great guy, Dwayne.
No, I haven't met him.
He owns Action Karate, and he actually is an author, and he wrote a really phenomenal book years and years ago called Black Belt Parenting. And it was all about the lessons of the martial arts.
I remember that.
Into parenting. And at one point I was buying them and giving them out to my parents in the dojo. It's such a good book. But anyway, so back to what I was saying before I so easily got sidetracked. We were talking about how the comeback, and I was saying, this is a news that I'm just able to release as of now, but lo and behold, my next door neighbor at my headquarters school, and I've been there this November 9th for 29 years. This November 9th would have been 29 years in one location. My next door neighbor offered and has been bugging me and pestering me to buy my building. And I finally said, you know what? I think now's the time to do it. So I'm moving my headquarters school and combining my two schools together. They're literally 12 or 13 minutes apart. Whatever students are going to transfer over, which a good percentage of them that are actively training through the COVID and new members are transferring over, and now we're going to have one location. And I did it mainly because I just wanted to simplify my life a little and make my life a little easier. Not have to worry about what, God forbid, what happens if COVID hits, maintaining two schools and paying two taxes and all that stuff. So it's kind of bittersweet. I'm going through this really emotional time. It's almost like mourning the loss of a family member. I mean, I've literally my whole life, every day, 4 or 5 days a week, sometimes 7, I've spent building that school, teaching at that school, being with my students, and people have grown up in that school. In fact, my attorney that did the closing on the building, his kid started with me when he was 3. And he's also one of my attorneys, and he's now an adult who trained with me there his whole life. So that the attorney was like, it makes me sad. I almost wanted to cry hearing that you're not going to be there anymore. So it's a kind of an emotional thing for me, and I'm still trying to figure out how to mentally adjust to it.
Yeah. So what is our topic today? You wanted to talk about some quick review of systems and kind of revisiting your school on the business rules and protocols and those type of things.
Yeah, I think it's a good topic because I think now more than ever, we have a little bit of a reset where we can possibly take the time now to adjust the things that may not have been perfect for us. In other words, so for me, my leadership team, I love to teach my leadership team. I normally do it every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. So that means I'm up every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. and I make it to the school and then I teach that program.
Quickly explain what your leadership team is. It's the individuals that are learning how to teach. Is that what that is?
Okay. Yeah, it's more than that. My TLCD, I call it, Team Leadership Character Development Program, and then my ITP program, Instructor Training Program, is a Saturday class of 1 hour. And I have curriculums that I teach that are on personal development, all the things that I've ever learned from all the gurus out there, Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, all the guys that we all look up to. And then I teach seminars and classes for the month, themed monthly lesson plans on goal setting, time management, time slicing, public speaking. And then we break down how to teach, break people out of their shyness, and we teach them how to present and the structure of a class and how to actually train and teach on the floor. But we also do different projects to get them to understand. And I've done cool things like making up your own business, in theory, and, starting an internet business and how to market it and how to promote it and do all these really cool things. So they're learning so much more. So anyway, I was doing that every Saturday, and I only did a $50 a month upgrade. So I was literally making $12.50 a class, of course, times, the 20 or so members. But I thought, I said, you know what, maybe I could change the structure on that and do it where we do 2 Saturdays. So I get to sleep in for an hour, whoopee, right? 1 hour on a Saturday. And then do the classes. Each individual would get personal instruction, and they'll come in and help teach. And we'll be in their ear instructing them on how to teach and getting them out of their funk or shyness. And Sensei Brenner said, do you charge for these classes? And I said, yes, I do. I charge $50 a month. Now it's 2 days on 2 Saturdays, and then the rest of them are within their classroom. So when they show up, they get to lead drills, they get to learn drills, and we're in their ear giving them personal coaching and instruction. So I decided that was something that I wanted to change. I wanted to make it easier on the students. They didn't always have to get up that early on a Saturday, and also on myself. Good question. He asked another great question. He wrote, do they get jobs after? A good majority. I won't hire people to teach in my school unless they've been through my leadership team, number one. If they join leadership team and they quit leadership team, I still won't hire them because they're not staying up on the material. So if they're a leadership team member, most of them have become part-time instructors, or they are assistant instructors, and they get a job. It's not guaranteed. Not everyone does it so that they can be instructors, but I will utilize them for my birthday parties, for my after-school programs if I ever have them, for special events and things of that nature. So they always do have an opportunity to help, learn, and also make some money. So my main instructor is now with me for 17 years. He started off as a regular student in my leadership team, and now he does it for a full-time living. And 90% of my guys that did it full-time went through my instructor training program. So that answers that question for him. So yeah, so I reevaluated, Dwayne. That was my main purpose, and I'm looking at everything. I did raise my prices as well. Not a lot, for people who are brand new, they don't even know that there's a price increase because we're way cheaper than a lot of the other schools that are out there still. But for the members that, and I gave my old members, I grandfathered them in for another year so that they're not getting a price increase. So it's only new members coming in, and I have to honestly say, they're not batting an eyelash, and it's a $15 increase of what I used to charge. But the new members are like, oh, that's still cheap. That's a great price. And I charge $145 for my basic program, $169 for my Black Belt Club, $225 for my elite, Masters Elite program.
Yeah, so, and I do. I just raised my prices as well. So we went from $149 a month, and I went to a big price raise to $156.23.
Oh, okay. Why do you do the 23?
Well, you and I both know with that book that I bought you, negotiating, never split the difference, is to give an exact amount and make it an odd amount, and meaning not odd that it's got to be a 1, a 3, a 5, a 7, or a 9, but it needs to be a number that it looks like you actually did your homework and what the program actually costs. So I decided to raise the price to $156.23.
And by the way, the book you mentioned you bought for me was probably the best gift you could have ever given a guy like me, Dwayne, because I've no joke right now at this point, I've used the techniques in that book to probably say, even a family member had my fiance's mom had a legal bill that she got for like readjusting her will, and the guy charged like $2,900 for this adjustment. So I called the guy up and I negotiated through the techniques of this book, and it's really not finagling anything in any way, shape, or form. I was able to negotiate that bill to $900. So can you imagine? I saved her $2,000, never split the difference, negotiating as this, If Your Life Depends on It by Chris Voss. And I've also taken his virtual seminar, which was off of the master class. And I did his training where he literally teaches hostage negotiation tactics to negotiate. And it's just amazing. It's just simple questions that you'll ask your people like, do you think that that's fair? Like people who are trying to rip me off or beat me out of money, I'll ask them that question. I'm like, do you think that that's fair? That you don't want to pay? And they'll say, well, what do you mean? And I'll go, well, do you think it's fair that I should take the brunt of it all? Or do you think it would be fair for you to give me something? And then now you're pushing it in their corner. And they usually come back with a fair deal, something that I'm willing to accept because they understand that what they're doing was not at all fair. That's one of his techniques in the book. It's just amazing. So anyway, everyone who's listening, you should do it. So keep going. You were talking.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, so I raised the price to $156.23, and then I also created an option for people to pay weekly. So if they want to pay weekly as opposed to monthly or bi-monthly, they can do the weekly. And the weekly is $37 a week. Well, that comes out by the end of the year. We're going to make about $50 more on that student. So they are paying a slight bit more for doing weekly payments. So we did switch to that option as well.
I think it's way more than that. I think it's way more than that, Dwayne, because if you do it monthly, that's for 12 months, 12 payments. But if you do it weekly, it's 52 payments, right? So if you divide 52 by, so like how many months have an extra week in them? There's like 5 months that you get an extra payment.
Well, it really comes out to be, if you take 156.23 times 12 divided by 52, that comes out to be $36.05. So I went ahead and just made it $37 even. So by the end of the year, we're making about $50 more off of that person. Which I do have a few people that have taken that option because $37 a week sounds less than $156 and 23 cents a month. Right.
So Master Brennan said 4 extra payments. So it's pretty awesome, right?
Yeah.
That alone is just a smart thing, and it gives people the option of wanting to pay how they feel comfortable.
Yeah. So we switched and did that. We do have an upgrade you know, our leadership, our leadership has always been there, and that's always been $20 more per month. So now with it being $56.23, of course, then it's going to be, you know, $176.23 for that. And then we have our Storm team, which is kind of like what your instructor training program is. And our Storm team is just $10 more per month, but you have to be in leadership first before you can actually be, you know, allowed into. So that'll bump that to, rather than $179. Of course, that's because that's what it is right now. If you're doing leadership, because it used to be, the price used to be $149 for the regular, $20 for leadership would be put you at $169, and then $10 more for the Storm as $179. So now, of course, we've just upped the Storm team a little bit as well. And
that's cool.
Our Storm team is done a little bit differently, where I actually have everything done online. And so we do in-person training, in-person testing once a month. So they have a curriculum that they're learning online for that whole month, and then they have to test online, pass that test online, and then come in and do a physical test. So for instance, if in that curriculum they're teaching, let's say, low block, middle punch, front kick, attention stance, bow, ready stance, you know, front stance, and then horse stance, then they have to come in and teach us how they would teach that. And they have to pass that as well physically. And that's just a 15-minute private lesson. And then, you know, they get graduated to the next level. And that program is a 2-year program. And then we do meet prior to COVID, but now we're getting back into it. We do meet quarterly for 2 hours on either a Friday night or a Saturday morning. And so that's our team building time. We'll do team building exercises and stuff.
Excellent. So you made adjustments on that as well to fit your needs. And the reason why I asked that question is I think that, you know, that whole saying, which kind of it irks me when I hear it in context of COVID, but it's more like the new normal, right? So like with my leadership team, I had a bunch of and it's always my families that have been with me a while. They bailed on the leadership team because I went from 2 days a week on 4 days a weekends on, you know, 4 Saturdays to 2. So they're like, you're going to charge the same price. I have a friend that I taught his leadership team in his martial arts school, and he does 1 class a month for 1 hour, and he charged $85 for the class. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, some of the parents that were actually complaining that they were only getting 2 classes a month, they do private lessons with one of my instructors and pay $85 for the hour. And I said, like, isn't that funny how they'll pay a private lesson $85, but for me, Ali Albarigo, 52 years of experience, 8th degree black belt, founder of the system, God forbid I want $12.50 or $25 per class. Like, it's weird how people put it in context. So through COVID, I've come to the realization that I have to make sure that I'm happy. You know, I want to make sure that I'm satisfied. Like you said, I think you're saying this is our happy house, right? That's what we talked about before.
Yeah, my saying goes, you know, this is my happy house. And if you're not happy, I'm not the one that's leaving. So.
Right, exactly. So that's cool. Sensei Brenna said that he had some great videos to share on his enrollment process. Maybe we could have him post them on our page.
Yeah, that'd be fine. That's perfect.
Yeah. If you're willing to share that with Sensei Brenna, if you're willing to share that with the entire group, why don't you share that on our pages, which is it's a closed group, by the way, so it's only for school owners. And that's the group that you're in right now, Martial Arts School Owner Talk. It's a private group. But so you were saying, Dwayne?
Yeah, and I actually have gone through and dialed in, if you will, to the best of my ability, dialed in since he brought up enrollment, our enrollment process. Obviously, with the software that we use with Spark, we're able to automate a lot of things, and so there is a 6-step video series process that happens. But on top of that, there's different things that go on. So, for instance, when somebody comes in for their first class, I give them a tag, obviously, and then that tag puts them into this automation. Well, one of the first things that happens is they're going to get a video on our how to download our app and make sure that it's hooked up correctly to our system. And then,
now let's
16
point out to them that through Spark what a tag is and what an automation is, because there are people that don't use Spark. So maybe you could explain that a little.
Yeah, so if you have some sort of system, whether you're using Spark or if you're using, like I used to use Ontraport, and even before that I used Infusionsoft. Tags are meant to usually put somebody in some sort of automation. Well,
to identify them.
Yeah, and so this particular automation is for a new trial student. And so they get, like I said, the first video right away. And then 60 minutes later, they get a second text and also a email on, hey, how did Johnny's first class go? And so it's a survey for them to fill out that first class survey. And then if they actually fill out that first class survey, then it gives them another tag that puts them in a different automation that says, hey, thanks for filling it out. By the way, share the love. It gives them a video on how to share the love. Why don't you go? So the next day they get another video from us on, basically the three parts of our program, all the way up to, because then there's a total of 6 videos, all the way up to the 6th video is the presentation on the price of the program, and how that all works. And they even so much so that, of course, we take them step by step, right? First video talks about the program, what's in it. Next video talks about, how to make sure, how you punch in. You can punch in via the app when you show up, or you can punch in on our iPad on the wall. I teach them how to tie their belt, where to put their shoes. I mean, all those things. The third video is just like confidential facts, the confidential facts about Dwayne Brummett's TriStar Martial Arts Academy. And of course, inside of that one, if there are other additional family members, I'm trying to get them on board to join with them. And then like the fourth video goes over the private lessons, how to set up a private lesson if they need a private lesson via the app. It also goes over our school policy and our strike policy. You get a strike for this, you get a strike for this, you can get kicked out for that. I mean, all those things. And then there's another text and email that they get with regards to what we call our discovery session. The discovery session is basically asking the questions on, what they're looking for out of a martial arts program for their child. Because then the last video they get is on the enrollment conference, the price of the program, how the payments work, how our cancellations work, all those things. And then I have the enrollment conference, usually the day after they get the video for, how the enrollment conference works. Well, if you remember, 2 days before that, they did the discovery session. I pull up the discovery session, and now I learn everything about that individual to talk to them about their child. So when I sit down with them and I say, Mrs. Jones, I see that you're looking for focus out of your child, or discipline or whatever it is. Let me ask you a question. What have you seen thus far on the floor that has helped with that area, that type of thing, or whatever it is. And so basically, she's giving me the info that I need in order to, absolutely. So I took time to dial that in. But then not only did I do that for the first person, because my problem was sometimes I'll have 2 or 3 family members doing the trial at the same time. So I needed to come up with, and I'm sorry if you can hear that. I'm getting gutters put on the roof.
No, I don't hear anything.
Okay, so the second trial member, they don't need to get those videos, but I do want them to get the first class survey. I do want them to get the discovery session, and the same thing with third or fourth or fifth family members. So I created those sequences to put them in at the same time, but they're not going to get as different. So it sounds like, the first person, obviously it talks about them getting their first class survey. And then the next one is, oh, hey, by the way, yes, can you also do that for little Johnny too? And then the third one is, oh, and lastly, can you do it as well for, little Joey, that type of thing.
Right. I love it.
So I took time to actually dial that stuff in, if that makes sense.
No, that does. And I was just going to say that. So when some people were licking their wounds, so to speak, because of this whole COVID situation, just taking time to wallow in this situation. You and I were, yeah, well, we did a little bit. You and I, thank God we had each other. I have to say, you know, you call me up and go, hey, what, are you doing okay today? And I'm like, yeah, not so good. You know, so we helped each other through a very tough time. And still, like, you know, just like this morning when I was kind of spilling my anxiety or fears or, you know, nervousness about my building sale and moving and, you know, that kind of thing and how it's emotional. But anyway, so you're saying, though, that you took that time to take a look at your programs, reevaluate how your sales process is, lay it out, and get it to a point where you know it's going to be more efficient and more successful. And we learn from our mistakes. So you're fixing all those things. And I've been doing that as well on a lot of my automations, you know, making sure I change the verbiage, seeing where people are falling off and they're not, you know, what points they're still missing. Like, I don't know how to tie the belt, so I'm going to go into a real detailed, I have a video on how to tie their belt and send that to them, and all these little things to make their life easier and make them have a better user experience, so to speak.
Well, and I've even taken the time to dial in the onboarding process right after they become a student as well. So, you know, obviously, you know, the 2-4-6-8, 10-week, 12-week, you know, yeah, all of those things, dialing those in all the way up until 9 months, because then after the first 9 months, I don't do upgrades until the first 9 months. So they don't get an option to go into leadership until, you know, for me, they're at least an orange belt, getting ready to go for their orange with a white stripe. That's the way that I do it. And
that's interesting.
Yeah. And so, and part of the reason I do that is because I see by that time, that's when their interest starts to kind of wane. And so introducing that opportunity to get into a higher level program kind of gives them that boost. And then, by the way, then when they get into my intermediate class, because by that time they're getting ready to move into the intermediate, now they're in leadership for most of them. And then they're in that for a total of a year as well. Well, by the end of about 3 months before them into the advanced class, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking on YouTube Live to see where we're at. What is it under as far as the listing, like where I could look it up?
It's School Owner Talk. So you'd have to look. You have to probably type in School Owner Talk for YouTube. I think it's all one word, School Owner Talk.
What, without spaces?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, not to sidetrack. So
no, you're fine.
I wanted to see how we're doing with that. So that's pretty cool. So so now, what have you done that? And I'm almost interviewing you now a little bit, but like, what have you done mentally to change the way? Like, have you had any reevaluations of the rules and protocol for your business? Are you gonna be less tolerant in regards to X, Y, and Z? Are you gonna be more stringent on how, you know what I mean? Can you give us a little bit of insight on that too? Because I've found that I'm doing a lot of old school evaluations of how I used to be, you know, and not in a mean way or hard way, but I'm just kind of looking at how, you know, I was less tolerant back in the day, and it seemed like those students were much more appreciative because they were following a martial path. So what are you doing? Yes. Anything differently? Have you gotten anything?
Yeah, and that's part of that onboarding process where they're getting different videos and such that are you know, moving them forward. And so one of them is, you know, look, if you're late, we understand that happens sometimes. If you're late coming into class, that you have to raise your hand and ask permission to go into class. You know, you just can't walk into class when you're late. And then obviously along with that, if you have to go to the restroom during class, obviously raise your hand and get permission. But when you come back, you also have to ask permission to walk into class as well. You know, so that's one of the videos that talks about that protocol. Another one talks about that, you know, look, if you're in the building prior to class starting, what you have to do is you have to put your stuff away, punch in, and go sit along the wall. there's no running around. And then, if your siblings are there, they can't be running around. They have to be sitting down, paying attention to the rules. And part of the rules is keeping, their inside voice on and their outside voice off. The other rule is no running in the building, even though we have space. It's not a jungle gym. So what I did was I took all those small little things that piss me off, and I put them into videos. Like even no standing, no having, no parents. I understand that you're watching your kid, and this isn't true, but I said it this way. Parents, I know that you're watching your kid intently out on the floor, and sometimes you don't see, your other child standing up on the chair next to you or the bench next to you. But I need you to make sure that they're not standing up on that bench. Now, that's not the case. Usually the parent does see it, and they don't even give a crap that they're standing on my furniture, that type of thing. So, but I took those small little things that piss me off and just,
Yeah. It's like when we have that bad kid in class and we go like, oh my God, I love the way you're standing up perfectly straight and listening so well. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, and then they become the good student. We do the same reverse psychology on a parent as well. So yeah, I think that for everybody who's listening, this is a period of time in your life where you can reevaluate all the things that maybe were getting on your nerves, maybe the things that weren't working so well. And I suggest too, reevaluate programs. For example, I had some clients that their pet program that they loved with all their heart was Haganah, which is an Israeli combative martial art program similar to Krav Maga, right? And, this program it took up 3 or 4 days on their schedule, but it was very ill attended. I think they only had like 3 or 4 people out of their entire enrollment that were paying to do this program. So I said, maybe it's time to get rid of the program as it seems and take it out of your schedule. However, I said, if you really love this Haganah program, why don't you incorporate that into your Black Belt Club, right? And for all Black Belt Club members, now you have a bunch of them in there, 30 or 40 or 50 or whatever you have. Now they could learn the Haganah program, and you kill 2 birds with 1 stone, which really I don't like because I'm a vegan, so I don't want to kill any animals, right? But why don't you put it in there and add it in and say, okay, so now all your Black Belt Club members are going to do what you love because you love Haganah, that program. So that was a really big milestone for them. And they had to see it as not letting it go and axing it and getting rid of it, but repurposing it and using it as a sales tool for their Black Belt Club. So I think that school owners now should kind of look at their systems and look at their programs. I did that not too long ago with our kickboxing program. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, we did that. We restructured even our curriculum and our pathway up to Black Belt class because, like you've been at my school, I have 2 rooms. My back room is huge. Yeah. And I could operate. I really could operate out of the front room if I have to. The only time I need the back room really is which is a great problem to have, is my Black Belt class. Because I need that room for that. Now, if I didn't have COVID, I could pack everybody into 1 room. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But so what I did was number 1, I looked at my lease to see how long I have, on my lease. I don't plan on moving, but I structured the program so that I don't have to have that back room at all. And so when I will make a decision in a year, because a year and 3 months is when I need to make the decision, and maybe I might get rid of that back room, and that back room will save me about $1,200 a month by doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if I don't need it,
a year almost.
Yeah, and if I don't need it, then I don't need it. I mean, obviously, it would only take 7 students to pay that off every single month, but 8 students to pay that off per month. But if I don't really need it, then what's the point? Does that make sense?
Right. Totally does. And I've done that too. Like, listen, I went from, over the years, my one East Islip location had 3 floors running simultaneously. My West Islip school had 2 floors running simultaneously. And, we would have, we had a very good separation of rank so that, maybe it was a white and yellow belt class, or beginner and white, and then a yellow, and then green and blue, and then purple and brown, and then different age groups, little, mighty, elite, warrior. But I found too that, like having all these varieties does more damage to the school when it comes to burning out instructors, having way too many classes to cover, higher payroll, because now you need 3 people. You can't, so I started to condense that. When I first started, I had everyone in one class. That is it. I offered an adult class Monday and Friday, and all adults of all ranks would train together and enjoy it. And the younger belts would look up to the higher ranks. And, so I kind of went back to that model slightly with our new schedule that we just released. And we're selectively using certain classes to have mentoring as well, where a brown belt kid is in there with a blue and purple belt, and that brown belt becomes that helper, that model, that role model, and so on. So, yeah, again, back to certainly reevaluate without a doubt.
Yeah, and that's what we did.
That's awesome. So now we're getting a lot of comments from our YouTube people. I don't see who they are. I thought it was maybe Sensei Brenner, and then it says YouTube user. So one of the comments was great. It said, you can cultivate 2 strawberry patches with 1 rake. I like that statement, because that's kind of what I'm doing now, where I combine my 2 locations together. And where I used to not have the buy-in from my East Islip location and my West Islip location, they wouldn't travel to each location. I wanted to always mix them together so we had one big happy family. Now we do, and we're all going to be together on the mats together, right? So it's not that East Islip, West Islip. We used to make it sound like it was a gang rivalry, East Islip, West Islip, with the fingers. But yeah, so
that was
so
Rick
cool.
Kellerman that said that. That was on Facebook. Rick Kellerman.
Oh, cool, very cool. So he's a great guy, good friend of mine, and in fact, he's reopening a new